Hello and welcome back to Dukascopy TV. I'm Monica Gibson and I'm joined in the studio once again by Jean-François of Owczarczak to discuss some of your favourite currency pairs. Jean-François, thank you very much for coming in.
Thank you, Monica, for having me back.
Not at all. Now, we're going to discuss the usual suspects, if you like, to see whether they're following the same trends as last week or if there has been some reversals. Looking at the pound dollar and the euro dollar, and also gold at the end. But can we just see what the charts are showing us for the moment with these pairs, please?
Sure. So we, on our main Fingraphs website, we're going to go into the Dukascopy directory with your live prices. And we're going to start with the mosaic, and we're going to widen the spectrum a bit. We're going to go on the daily mosaic. On the hourly, the euro is hitting against or is slightly above its corrective targets. So we're going to try to get a longer-term perspective to see if that is a trend-changing phenomenon or not. So let's go on. We are in US dollar pairs, and let's go on the daily mosaic. So the daily brings a price perspective of several months. And as you can see, here you have the currencies quoted against the dollar, i.e. Australian dollar, Euro dollar, cable, and New Zealand dollar. And here are the currencies quoted in the direction of the dollar. The trends on the daily basis are still in place. Basically, Australian dollar is still heading down with impulsive targets here. Euro dollar is still heading down, also with impulsive targets. Pound sterling is also still heading down. New Zealand dollar, the same. Now, if you see here, dollar Swiss is heading up. The dollar against the Japanese yen is still heading up. And so basically the important trends which give a medium-term time horizon are still in the direction of the dollar, which has been strengthening since for some of them since late last year or since the end of January, early February. Now we're going to have a look here now at the hourly mosaic to see if what is happening on the euro, i.e. the euro above 130, is a game-changing phenomenon.
I know there was some interesting PMI data from the Eurozone, so it'd be interesting to see if the graphs are showing that.
Well, the euro has reacted in that direction. Now, is that sustainable? That's the whole question. Now, for the time being, the euro, as you see, has gone above its corrective targets, and hence these impulsive targets, which, and we maybe quickly focus on it. So, longer term, slight bull, but we've been in a sideways movement for quite some time on the weekly. And so we really need to turn to the daily to get some direction. And as we were mentioning previously, the daily is still heading down, and there's still a few months to go. We just made end of January an important top, and just made a second top here in May, and a lower top. So that's usually confirms a resummance of the trend in the initial direction. Now, if we look here at the hourly, well, we had corrective targets slightly above 130, and we were able to trigger them with this move last week. Now, the system is telling us that we would have the potential to go between 132 and 133. And it's true that for the time being, we're pretty much in the middle of the range, and there's not much risk on our risk index here. Okay. So if we were only considering the euro, we could probably start to envisage a reversal of this trend. Now, I just wanted to focus out and go back to the mosaic and point out to the other currencies. Now, if you look at the Australian dollar, it's still heading down, and we don't see a glimpse of that correction up materializing. If you look at New Zealand dollar, it's even worse. It is continuing to fall. Now, the pound is also seeing that correction up, and we really need to see it. And I'm looking at the corrective targets on the hourly above 153.56 to trigger the same phenomenon as on the euro. And so we're not there yet, but these are important levels to watch to confirm what we're seeing on the euro. Now, to seek further confirmations, let's look, for example, at dollar Swiss. And dollar Swiss here, if we look at the correction down, similar story. We've had a correction, but it hasn't been able to go impulsive yet. And we really need to make it below 195.20 to really trigger anything bigger. Just like to finish off on the last currency we're going to have a look at here on the mosaic is dollar yen. Well, dollar yen here, this trigger point on the hourly is around 100. It means as long as we stay above this 100 mark, and there's a lot of discussion about it at the moment, we would be safe in the previous trends and would not be opening the door, maybe not to reversal, but at least to a stronger correction down. And in this respect, it's probably interesting to look at the dollar yen here. If you look at the daily, well, it's fully priced. So, I mean, you can't exclude that we would go into a larger correction. It's quite expensive. But we would wait to see if that 100 mark is triggered to really announce it.
Yeah, the 100 mark certainly is very, very crucial, isn't it?
It is. But we think over the longer term perspective, we're only looking at intermediate tops at this stage. If you look at the weekly, well, it's in an exaggeration, but the trend is still strongly up and there's still a lot of time. So anything that happens would, even if it went under 100 and reached lower corrective levels, over the longer term basis, that means several quarters, we're still in an uptrend and we're only looking here at intermediate tops.
Very interesting.
That's pretty much it for currencies.
Now, yeah, if we move on a little bit and look at gold, see how it's performing. As we enter June, it was a little bit higher considering we had the 5% drop last month. So how is it looking on the graphs at the moment then?
Well, let's have a look. Basically, it's pretty much the same story.
Yeah.
I mean, you've had the large drop here that you registered about a month and a half ago. And that went through our corrective targets on the long term, meaning it opened the door here to targets between 943 and 1160. That is your long-term risk over the next several quarters. For now, there's no really reason to really cast these into doubt, as we are in the middle of the range on the envelopes and in the middle of the range, or slightly lower, but still not yet in the green, i.e. the oversold zone on the risk index. If we focus out, if we look at the daily, we've had the impulsive move. We're slowly getting towards the end of its potential, and our oscillator is in the green. But there's a bit more time left, and so we think it's a bit too early. There's another month and a half to go before we could really call it an intermediate bottom.
Okay.
And why an intermediate bottom? Because here there's more time left to reach a final bottom. And so, coming back to what we were saying on the currencies, looking at the hourly, well, we're in a bull trend, but it's only a corrective uptrend. And we would really need to see it below 1423 to trigger anything bigger. So basically, on all these assets quoted against the dollar, we would really need to see more confirmation that we could make it above the corrective targets to trigger a larger consolidation down for the dollar. So for now, the daily trends are still in place, and we'll see next week where we stand on that.
Okay, so patience is perhaps a virtue at the moment, but thank you so much, Jean-François, for talking us through it today. Very interesting, as always.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Well, that's all for Jean-François and myself. Please do click back to Dukascopy for all the latest hourly updates, but for now, goodbye.